You might be interested to know that this happened during Trump's first term. Grandson was the whistleblower for Jared Kushner's COVID-19 task force. Max Kennedy Jr. revealed his identity to the New Yorker, saying that the Trump administration's response to the pandemic was like a family office meets organized crime, melded with Lord of the Flies. Well, I mean, he would know, wouldn't he, considering the family he's from? But you should know what his whole name is. See, it's not just Max, it's Matthew Maxwell Taylor Kennedy. And you may think, so what? Like Ghislaine Maxwell or Robert Maxwell. Now they say it's from some, let me tell you what they say. From 1965, the ninth child born to the Senator and Mrs. Robert F. Kennedy was named Matthew Maxwell Taylor Kennedy at a baptismal service today at St. Patrick's Cathedral. The baby's middle names were for Maxwell Taylor, U.S. Ambassador to South Vietnam, a good friend of the Kennedys. Mr. Kennedy became one of General Taylor's admirers when they both served on a panel set up by President Kennedy to investigate the failure of the Bay of Pigs. Boy, that had to be some friendship that you put your you name your middle child by that. Okay, surrounded by a dozen kinsmen, including Jacqueline Kennedy and 2 children, the newest members of the Kennedy family cried, and then it just goes into the baptism. But as you can see here, it also says, as an American government volunteer, political organizer, and member of the Kennedy family, he is a whistleblower who sent a complaint to the United States House Committee on Oversight and Reform regarding the White House coronavirus task force, which he worked on as a volunteer. Before he got into his political endeavors, there's him getting baptized, yeah. Now doing the same thing the rest of the family's done. But then, of course, it was very important to RFK Jr. that that his daughter-in-law be put in the top spot of the CIA. Yeah, when he got his little, gig in the Trump administration. So put it together. Yeah, I wonder why the podcasters and nobody can put it together. Is it that hard to put together? I mean, I've said for a while, I don't think he wants it to come out what happened to his uncle. I think he knows. I think the whole Kennedy clan knows. They just don't want you to know. Yet all these people get into Trump's administration. Yeah, Max Kennedy Jr., the grandson and former Senator, Attorney General, and presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy, has come forward in the New Yorker as the whistleblower who revealed the failings of Jared Kushner's COVID-19 task force. The 26-year-old says he became involved in the Trump administration's coronavirus response effort after a friend recommended he volunteer for Kushner's task force. The president's son-in-law and senior advisor, the friend explained, was searching for young people who could work for free. Though Kennedy is a Democrat, he decided that joining the Republican lead group was the right thing to do. Sure he did. It was such an unprecedented time. It didn't seem political. It seemed larger than the administration. Yeah, but he didn't stay there very long. Sort of like Elon Musk. He was on some committee too, but only stayed a couple of months. But what he saw in his time working under Kushner compelled him to send an anonymous report to Congress detailing the inner workings of the White House COVID-19 supply chain task force, despite having signed a non-disclosure agreement. It was like a family office meets organized crime. Kennedy says he was shocked that he and a dozen other 20-somethings with no experience in the medical sector were tasked with procuring much-needed PPE for the country using their personal laptops and email addresses. We were the team. We were the entire frontline team for the federal government. Kennedy added, quote, "It was the number of people who show up to an after-school event not to run the greatest crisis in 100 years. It was such a mismatch of personnel. It was one of the largest mobilization problems ever." He theorized that the administration chose to use inexperienced young volunteers in order to avoid input from experts and further control the narrative around the pandemic. Well, I think your family really had the control of the narrative, didn't they? Kennedy says that he was pressured to create a model that projected fewer deaths, what a liar, from the virus because experts' predictions were too severe. Yeah, and the experts were all wrong, despite him not knowing the first thing about disease modeling. Well, then why did you get involved in it? Like, really, why would you get involved in a task force and you have no experience into it? Then you go whistleblow about something that you have no experience in. You know exactly why he was involved in it. Kennedy also claimed that Fox News personality Jeanine Pirro held sway over the task force, calling for masks to be provided to her chosen hospital. PPE supplies valued in the millions were shipped to just 5 distributors. Kennedy was asked to write a statement justifying his choice, and he refused. Meanwhile, Kennedy remembers getting hundreds of emails a day offering PPE, which were not effectively responded to. Instead, Kennedy's superiors praised Trump as a marketing genius for putting the blame on the states and took it on faith that the worst thing we could do was to step on the toes of the private sector. Kennedy quit in April. And sent Congress the anonymous complaint, quote, "I just couldn't sleep," he said, explaining why he chose to defy his NDA. "I was so distressed and disturbed by what I had seen." Oh, bullshit. All these people, nothing but bullshitters. Bullshitters everywhere. Nothing but bullshitters.